Alright, let's see what we got today. I keep on rolling. Rolling. I'm not meant to roll, really, that much. I roll down the hill, try not to break my legs while I'm rolling. But I like to roll anyways. Even though walking is safer, I roll down the hill. I roll down. Okay. So I'm going to keep on going with this one, with the thing. And I'm going to keep on doing my terminology and try to practice it in my mind, because I think it gets me. I'm trying to unconnect my mind to the terminology that's like, or not have my only hooks be things that are the conventional terminology that doesn't allow me to measure by distance, but still try to bridge the gap and then visualize from a modal perspective, which I think more and more I'm realizing that in the music community, this idea of a modal perspective, some people say it kind of like with a sneer. So I think it's gotten, more that I look at it, like kind of a stigma, like it's bad or something. Because, and I don't really get that, because the only thing I can think of is like, because I'm not really, I'm just an accountant, that tried to learn this thing, so I don't really get possibly all the like weird stuff that goes on, like kind of like politically, or whatever. So I don't really exactly understand, because to me, this just makes the most sense, like just logically. So I don't really get it, but I'm sure there's some kind of. But anyway, so I feel like if you can maneuver around from a modal perspective, I can guarantee that you would master the fretboard way faster than you would if you weren't doing that, and you can visualize it better. I mean, there's just like no question in my mind about that. So that's what I'm going to do, and then and so to do that, you have to kind of think about the distance and try to hook yourself to be locked into scale degrees, because the scale degrees make you renumber everything, and I'm sure that that's the whole crux of the problem that people get, that's upsetting thing to do. So anyway, so I'm trying to link them together so I can go back and forth and code switch between those two things in my own mind, and I still think that's the way to teach the youngsters, because then everything is visual and you can try to work on spatial visualization and all that kind of stuff instead of just more rote memorization, which, I mean, I keep on, like, I don't see how, like, we're watching all this stuff on the AI stuff right now, or I am at least, like the AI is taking over everything, and what's going to happen, it seems to me, is like when you're starting to think about, like, well, what is learning? What is all this? Like, how the heck are these AI things doing this stuff? It seems to me it's more like association, right? They're trying to, like, well, you're trying to come up with more more different connections. You're not trying to memorize different things as though they're in isolation. You're trying to tie them together to other things, right? So anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm just gonna keep going with my project, and that's what I'll do. Let's try the joke break, the joke jump first. This one, I'm going into Disney Star Wars here. I don't know, like, you might not be in the world of Disney Star Wars or anything, so let me give you my quick recap of the situation here. I think Kathleen Kennedy is out now, as far as I can tell. I'm not a complete master of understanding all this stuff, and she kind of took over once Disney bought it. So from my perspective, I grew up with Star Wars. I'm not like the most fanatical fan, but when I was on vacation, I had to spend hours in a van driving around, and the only thing I had for entertainment was actually cassette tapes of Star Wars. So I played Star Wars like over and over in my head, not even on the movies, like on a tape cassette for like hours of driving all the time. So I grew up with, so I kind of was pretty, Star Wars was kind of like pretty big thing, right, for me. The follow-up trilogy was the generation after me, meaning the prequels, the first prequels to the originals. So I wasn't too into those. I went to the theater like first day to see the first one that came out, and then I was like, it's pretty good, but it wasn't like, it didn't have quite the same, but it was like, all right, but it wasn't. So and then they sold Star Wars to Disney, which I was actually naively enough somewhat happy about, because I kind of felt like I didn't know Disney was so like down the rabbit hole of like the political stuff, which they clearly are. I mean, I lived by Disneyland at the time, and it was getting weird at that time. Like you could tell the vibe was but that's Disneyland. I don't know, maybe I'm looking back and tripping on it now, I don't know. But I'm just saying, I felt like, well, Disney will figure, they got tons of money, just hire someone like Brandon Sanderson to do it, and then you'll be good. But they didn't do that. They wrote the trilogy, like, all the special effects are cool, everything is super high quality, except they didn't spend any time writing it in such a way that it has a coherent storyline, which is it's just like mind-boggling to me that they didn't do that. Like, the three movies don't even tie together, right? They don't even go together. And the first movie is a cheap ripoff of the first movie, which I was like, okay, that was bad because it was a ripoff, but at least they're trying to like mirror the same thing for the new generation. I was like, okay, they did it poorly, but at least at least I see where they're trying to do the same beats and the same. Anyway, so I was like, it's crazy. So I think that the writing got progressively worse after that, to the point where it's kind of undeniably bad at this point. And then so in order to defend the writing, I think they had to then do something, and their strategy is to blame the fans. So I feel like they're the first ones to come up with the strategy of, if you don't like my super expensive movie, you're a bigot. That's their marketing strategy. And I feel bad for the actors and actresses, because I think they're putting them out as the scapegoat to slaughter out there, right? They put them out there and they say, look at this person, they're diverse, and then they're actually using them as like a shield as if they're being nice, but they're putting them out there on purpose and trying to draw criticism, which they can then say is bigoted in some way, so that they can then claim that that's the thing, right? And which is a gross strategy to me. So I kind of like fell off on the Star Wars, and so that's the backstory on it. Okay, so ever since Kathleen Kennedy took over Star Wars, every time fans don't like something, it's never the writing, it's never the pacing, it's never plot holes, it's never that a character survived being stabbed, exploded, and emotionally resolved in the same episode. It makes no coherent sense. It's like watching a soap opera where the guy's like, I thought you were dead. I was. At least come up with a plot rationale within the universe that makes some coherent sense for going from A to B. It's like, no, it's always the fan. The fans, they don't get it. Why? Because Hollywood treats criticism the way restaurants treat food poisoning. They're like, sir, have you considered you experienced the meal incorrectly? No, I didn't experience it incorrectly. You poisoned the meal, for crying out loud. And look, I'm not saying movies in old Hollywood weren't made by the people running the place. Obviously, of course they were. The owners made stories they wanted. They made stories that they identified with, and so on and so forth. That's still true today. However, the ownership is different. Different people run it now. They make the stories they want, right, at this point in time, which, of course, as we can all see at this time, are gay stories. They're all gay stories, right? That's right. It seems absolutely clear that Hollywood is now owned and run by the gays, right? And okay, whatever, that's fine. It's not the most marketable strategy. I don't think the actual population has really changed market-wise since, I don't know, Brokeback Mountain flopped back in whatever, '02 or something. But whatever, right? Or likely it led to it might lead to bankruptcy, but it's a free country. It's a free country, But then don't also tell me the audience is wrong for noticing Star Wars story doesn't make sense and isn't made for the original audience, right? It's obviously that's the case, because now we've reached the point where they're blaming the Star Wars with bad dessert metaphors. Now, this is an old quote, but this is where my main pun comes from. And again, I feel kind of bad for the actors and actresses because they get put out there. It's not really fair. They're the ones that are kind of taking all the heat. And I think Hollywood used to protect them by not putting them out in these kind of super vulnerable situations, which actually elevated their status by less exposure, I think, which they took the opposite strategy now. But anyways, I saw this analogy basically saying fans complaining are like objecting to chocolate chips in the cookie. Chocolate chips, here's the quote, and I will analyze it here. Here's the quote. All right. Let's try it again. Dang it. It's messing up my flow, man. This is messing up my flow. It came up without the...
Always tell it something when some Star Wars fans try to say, well, we had Lando Calrissian and had Samuel L. Jackson. It's like telling me how many cookie chips are on the cookie dough. I'm like, bro, they just scattered that in there, bro.
Okay, now I know that's an old quote, but I'm just looking at the pun here. I'm just looking at the idea of cookies. So this is the argument that's being made, that there's not the cookie. You only have a few chocolate chips in the cookie. And it's like, dude, it just doesn't work. That's not, it's not the chocolate chips. Chocolate chips are the good part of the chocolate chip cookie, That analogy just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're going to make the argument, you at least have to come up with an analogy that makes sense, The cookie exists solely to transport chocolate into the face without violating OSHA hand stickiness regulations, for crying out loud. Nobody has ever said, wow, I love this warm baked dough disc. Shame about all the delicious chocolate running in it. That's not how it works. It's not you don't order, yeah, can I get a plain cookie? And if some chocolate accidentally falls into it, I guess I'll tolerate that. That's not generally how. No, the chocolate is the feature of the cookie. So the dough is the infrastructure. That's why we say it's a chocolate chip cookie and not cookies with chocolate chips, right? The chocolate part comes first because everybody likes the chocolate part of the cookie, and that's why. So Star Wars fans aren't mad there are chocolate chips. They're mad the cookie is 40 minutes of exposition and then a spoonful of raw flour labeled lore, you know? So I don't reject the cookie. You forgot to bake it, right? It's not, that's the problem. And by baking it, I mean writing a coherent script. You need a coherent script in the right, like, it's still boggled. Like, look, all the theme parks are based off of they have Star Wars Land in all the theme parks. And it's not like they have toys that they're trying to market. They have this whole infrastructure built off of the stories, and you have the main trilogy, and you didn't write a coherent arc through the trilogy. Like, you didn't even, like, you treated it like it was a cheap, like, cartoon that repeats every day or something, and you just write it as you go. That's it's mind-bogglingly bad that strategy is so, like, short-sighted. You're going to make money in the short run, but your goodwill is going to be gone, and then all you could do is, I don't know, find a scapegoat, I guess, but, I mean, come on. Anyway, I wrote a song about it.
Ever since the galaxy changed hands, every problem has a master plan. If a scene falls flat or stakes feel thin, they say the trouble must be fans again. Not the pace and breaking hyperspace, not the holes you could drive moons through in place, not the hero stabbed, exploded, healed, and learned the lesson before the cutscene sealed. No, it couldn't be the story beat. No, the script is always a lead. They say, sir, you watched it wrong. That's been the answer all along. Like a waiter smiling while alarms are ringing, telling me I misunderstood the thing. I didn't burn the recipe. I didn't ruin the fantasy. I didn't break your galaxy's orbit. You just forgot to bake it. Studios always made what they believed. Owners tell the stories they conceive. That's how movies always worked before, and it's how they work today for sure. But don't then say the crowd's insane for noticing the plot's a maze. You can change the tone and change the cast, just make the story actually last. Now the lectures start with metaphors, desserts defending space wars. They say you hate the chocolate chips, that's the complaint they always script. But nobody ever bought a cookie just to praise the flour and skip the good bits. I didn't fight variety, I came for story clarity. I didn't reject what's in it, you just forgot to bake it. Nobody orders plain dough warm, hoping flavor won't transform. Nobody cheers the lecture dump, then calls the ending a triumph. A cookie's job is simple truth, deliver joy directly to the mouth. Fans aren't mad, there's something new. They're mad the stakes don't follow through. 40 minutes lore and then a shrug. That's not a twist, that's just a bug. I didn't break your franchise myth, I still wanna believe in it. I came for stars, not raw ingredients. I didn't reject the cookie. You just forgot to bake it.
All right. Anyway, let's see. I'm surprised it's still going. I'm surprised people still actually even care about it at this point, because if I canceled my subscription like 5 years ago now, but still, that's how much influence they had. That's how much money printing capacity that they had. People still actually care at this point in time after they've been. Oh man. They could you could put a random prompt in ChatGTP, just a random prompt, and then just get all those brilliant people that do all the animation or whatever, the CGI, and just say, just follow the script. Don't mess up the. Get rid of the committee of storytellers. You can't tell a story by committee. It just doesn't work. You can have a committee come together to see how to make the animation or something, maybe, right? So if you can't agree on who writes the story, just tell ChatGPT to write it, with a basic prompt. Like, follow the general story arc and do the logical next trilogy with a coherent story arc, and then just make it, and don't mess it up. Don't try to change it, because you make it worse. You make it worse every time. Every time. It's ridiculous. But I guess that George R.R. Martin made a show that was they actually followed the script. They didn't Wheel of Time them. They followed the script, apparently. I stopped watching even that. I don't even read George R.R. Martin. I'm going to have to read it now just to watch it. But anyway, whatever. I'm going to get back to work. Let's just get back to work. Doesn't matter. Why do you even care, man? I don't know. Okay. Let's go to the next. They're doing it on purpose. That's why. That's so they're trying to make me care. And then, okay. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm back into the collection of notes around the key of C. I'm at 4 o'clock. So that means 8 fret up, first string down. That's the Ionian. And then we go back. Let me pull this down a bit. Back to the Mixolydian. So this is going to be, the Aeolian. This will be shape number 1 then. And so once again, we're on the 3rd string down from the top. So that's a G from the star, from space constellation. G, that's going to be Mixolydian, leaning into shape number 1, which you might call the cage system, from the cage system, the G shape, Ionian G shape. Okay, so now I'm leaning backward. I call this a lean back shape because it's defined by where the 2nd modal half step or 3rd scale degree is, which from Ionian, which is a long start node point. It's in a long start family, meaning it has a major family, meaning it has a long 2nd modal half step or 3rd scale degree, which is 4 notes away instead of 3 notes away. So that's defined by this nodal point. And so that means that nodal point number 7 is always the Mixolydian 1st modal whole step, Mixolydian 7 modal half step, Mixolydian 3rd scale degree, which is a long 3rd or major 3rd, meaning it's 4 notes away. And then we have the 5th down here. So that means that the Dorian node, node number 2, is always the Mixolydian 2nd modal half step times 2 Mixolydian, Mixolydian 2nd modal whole step times 2 Mixolydian 4th modal half step, Mixolydian 5th scale degree. And it has a long distance, which is perfect 5th, 7 notes away. And the one we're focused on is here now, which is the 6th modal half step or 7th scale degree. So now, and we know that it, going from the Mixolydian actually has a short it has a short 6th modal half steps or 7th scale degree, which is different from the Ionian or the Lydian, the other people that are in the long start group or the wide start group or the major group here. This is where the distinction factor differs from the people that are in its long start or major start club. And so that means that nodal point number 4 is always the third modal whole step times 2, 6th modal half step plus 1 7th scale degree, which has a long distance 10 notes away. So that's going to be our point of focus. So when I'm noodling or playing this, I think this shape would be the most common. I'm still calling that it's the most common if I name it by a reach back chord. Even though grabbing that 7 is in front, I'm still calling it a lean back shape because the second modal half step or third scale degree is behind there. So that's a pretty cool shape because that adds the bluesy kind of thing. And that's what I'm kind of like if I'm walking, like if I played, like I was playing, when I started, I was playing kind of like in D, blues major kind of. So, and that had, you know, so that if I played the 1, 4, 5 chord switches, right, it would be D, G, and A. So if I play that shape down here, that's the G 7, whoops. And then if I move it up here, whoops, not here. That's the A, so you get this. So I got that right. And then the D would be up here. Oh, right there. Position number. So it's just a half step, or I'm doing half step. Okay. So now we're going to. So now, let's say that we're going to shift that to. Did we do the Phrygian last time? I think I've gone through them a bunch of times now, but I think let's go back to the Phrygian. So now I want to make it Phrygian. Now, contextually, why would I want to go from G Mixolydian to G Phrygian? Well, it's kind of like a bluesy thing to do because I'm going from something that has, the Mixolydian has a short or minor second modal half step third scale degree, and I'm sorry, a long or major second modal half step or third scale degree, and it has a short or minor sixth modal half step or seventh scale degree. And then if I move it to here, the Phrygian, like the Aeolian or minor scale, it's in the short start club or the tight start club, meaning it has a short second modal half step or third scale degree. So that's kind of like the bluesy thing, switching back from the long third to the short third. And it also has, of course, a short sixth modal half step or seventh scale degree, but it also has this very tensiony first modal half step, second scale degree. So meaning it has a short first modal half step, second scale degree, or minor first modal half step or second scale degree. So that adds a lot more tension than the Aeolian or the Dorian, which are the other two minors you can switch to, right? interesting to do. I was trying to test it out there. Just trying to test it out. Okay. So I'm gonna move that up. So how would I do that? I'd go, if I want to make that Mixolydian and I have my finger on the star of G, Mixolydian, and I wanna move it to the Lydian, well then obviously, to the Phrygian, then it's 2 whole steps back, right? So that's negative 2 whole steps. Now this, I just want to point out, this is another area where the current system doesn't really help, because I'm going counterclockwise, right? So if I'm going counterclockwise, it doesn't really help me to name it as though I'm going clockwise that much, right? In other words, if I say, look, it's two modal whole steps back, that's equivalent, and I'm only looking at 7 steps, then that would be counterclockwise to the left, which would be equal to 7 minus 2, or 5 to the right. Meaning, from normal convention, you would call it a 5th modal half step or 6th scale degree, which if you're talking about a Mixolydian 5th modal half step or a Mixolydian 6th scale degree, then it would be a long distance or a 9 note away instead of an 8 note away. And if you're going 9 notes away clockwise, then the counterclockwise direction would be 12 minus 9, 9, which would be 3, which would be counterclockwise 3, right? So it would be kind of nice if we started to see, well, look, if I start to memorize the counterclockwise distances, meaning if I'm going negative 2 modal half steps or counterclockwise 2 modal half steps, and it's a Mixolydian negative 2 modal half steps, then the distance is going to be 1, 2, 3, 3 back. So, it would actually be nice to kind of map out the short and long distances going counterclockwise, which I kind of do in my course, if you want to check that out, because if you want to map that out, just to look at the logic, because I think that's where some of the stuff breaks down when you're trying to just map it out on a coordinate system like a map, which just makes common sense to like an accountant, so I don't know. I would map it so we're going counterclockwise, so it would be a Mixolydian negative 2 modal half step would have a distance of 3 back, right? 3 notes back. And I know that because I didn't change the system also, because it's going to be whole, half. So from Phrygian to Lydian is always a half step. From Lydian to Mixolydian is always a whole step. That means that going from Mixolydian back to Lydian is a whole step, and going from the Lydian to the Phrygian is a half step, which is negative 3 back. So in any case, if I see that, I'm in what I would call shape number 5. Or you might call it the Ionian A shape. I'm sorry, yeah, that's right. Or the Mixolydian shape. And then from here, if I was going to play that node, it would be from here. So it'd be from here, right? Am I on the right string? 3rd string down, right here. So boom, 2nd fret. So it'd be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, right? So if I played that same shape up here, as though that G was the 3, it would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. I don't know why I stopped at 2 last time. I'm a little off today. So it would be that. Okay. So then if I did that, then that means that this would be moving, as my finger's on the star of G, it would be moving 3 ticks to the right. So if I'm at 4 o'clock, collection of notes around the key of C, plus 3, that would be 7 o'clock. So if I change that to 7, this whole shape's going to move up here. That 3 is going to end up under my finger. Boom. Now I have the absolute star of G on my finger, but now the planet has rotated to put it on the Phrygian continent. So now it's on the Phrygian continent. The star of G is over the Phrygian continent. Okay, so let's go back before I analyze it and go back to this one. Okay, now my star of G finger is over the Mixolydian continent. Okay, so now let's say that I don't know that shape from here on the same string, which would be the easiest thing. I knew it from the top string, so I knew it from this string up top. Okay, well maybe it would be easier if I look at it over here so I can finger it without being in open position. So if it was right there, it'd be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. I'm not renumbering it. I'm going from 3 to 3. 3 to 3. It's not that hard. But I can't. What am I going to do when I get to 7? When I get to 7, then it doesn't work because then I want to go to 8. No, there's only 7 around the block. Like, so then you just start at 1 again. It's not that hard. It's not that, you see, you can count. And then like when you get to 7, like you just go back to 1, you know what I mean? Like it's not that, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh no! What? 1, 2, 3. It's not hard. You don't need to, no, I need to make this a 1. I need to make it a 1 so I can count all the way up without having to go around in a circle. Why? There's only 7. There's only 7. Okay. So like if I did that same thing over here, then I could just imagine like my finger is on absolute star of G, but I'm going to imagine there's a 3 under it, but I'm thinking of it as though it's like the top string of shape number 4, or what you might call the Phrygian/Lydian shape, or an Ionian D shape. So I'm going to be like, okay, that's like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, and then I have to shift it up because of the kink in the tuning, 2, 3. So as long as I shift as I cross the fault line, totally doable, dude. What about the string above it? What if I want to go above it? Well, this string is equivalent to this string, so I know I can at least go one line above it before I cross the kink, right? So this line above it will be the same mirrored shape if I moved it over here. Okay. What if I don't know it by, well, what if I, like, how would I count that out? How can I prove that to myself? Well, if I went down 2, each down tick, if I pull the world down 2 rotations, 2 ticks down, each tick's equivalent to 5 ticks to the right. So that would be 10 ticks down, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 ticks down is equivalent to 5 ticks to the right each, which is 10 ticks down minus 7 ticks to the left. 10 minus 7 is 3, and that's a net tick to the right of 3. And if I'm at 4 o'clock, collection of notes around the key of C plus 3 would be 7 o'clock, which would give us 7 o'clock is D sharp, collection of notes around D sharp, if I number 1, A as 1. But you can't number the notes. You can't. It's sacrilege to put numbers next to the note name. That's not, no. Who told you that? Who told you that? You can number the notes. I don't know who came up with that rule. It's not, it'll be okay. You will not, it's actually better. The numbers are the thing, man. All right, anyways, so if I do that, then these two strings are going to move down to these 2 strings. So I'm going to imagine this going down and this going down here. And as these 2 strings go down below the fault line, it's as though they're dipped into water, being distorted, and I can account for that, and that's not a problem. So there it is, back to here. Okay, now let's analyze this shape and say, okay, my circles should land on continents if they was the same intervals. But no, they're not all the same interval shapes because this one is off. What is that? Well, when that was the Mixolydian continent before the world spun from the perspective of space, from the star of G, then this one had a relative distance of the second modal half step third scale degree. So it was a Mixolydian second modal half step third scale degree, which was a long distance before, 4 notes away. But now we're in the Phrygian, which is part of the short start club, or the tight start club, or the minor club, which is defined by having the first jump in a chord construction, meaning the second modal half step or third scale degree, have a short distance of only 3 notes away. So it's back here. So you write 3, 4, 5. Second modal half step is back here, which is 5 notes between the strings, 5, 4, 3. This one would actually be a longer distance of 4. Okay, so it's back there. That makes sense. What about the 5th? The 5th is still in the same relative, the 5th is over here. It's still in the same relative position because that's the fourth modal half step or fifth, because all the fourth modal half steps or fifths are long distances from every node except the Locrian, which has a short fourth modal half step or fifth. In other words, they're all perfect as opposed to the Locrian, which is flattened. So so that means that nodal point number 7 is always the Phrygian second modal half step, the Phrygian times 2 always the Phrygian second modal whole step times 2 Phrygian fourth modal half step plus 1 Phrygian fifth scale degree, which has a long distance, which is 7, as opposed to the short distance of 6. And then we have the one that we're focused on, which is the sixth modal half step or 7th scale degree, which is also in the same relative position for the Phrygian as we had with the Mixolydian, because the Mixolydian, contrary to the people that are also in the Mixolydian's club, which is the long start club, the wide start club, the major club. So that the Mixolydian has a short 6 modal half step 7th scale degree, meaning it's only 10 notes away instead of 11 notes away, as is the case with all the people that are in the short start club or the tight start club or the minor club, in meaning that they have a short first jump when making a chord to the third or second modal half step or third scale degree. So that means it's in the same relative position, and that means that the Dorian is always the Mixolydian third modal whole step, the Phrygian third modal whole step, the Phrygian times 2 sixth modal half step, the Phrygian plus 1 7th scale degree, and has a short 6 modal half step 7th scale degree as opposed to a long 6 modal half step 7th scale degree, meaning it's 10 notes away instead of 11 notes away, which we can count by just saying there's 5 notes between the strings, and then this shifts up because of the kink in the tuning, shifts to the right, so it's 10 diagonally going this way, and there it is, 10 notes away. Boom. All right, makes perfect sense. So I was noodling around in that already, so I won't do that again right now. So let's go and visualize it this way. Let's visualize it this way and say, okay, let's do this one first. So now I've got now the world is mapped out, and the constellation, instead of having all the stars, the constellation of the fretboard is mapped out on top of it, and we know what the notes are within it because we've kind of memorized the notes, meaning we have the open strings, the warp represented by the shift of the shape of the guitar fretboard. This is fret 0. This is 5 frets up, 3 strings down. That gets us to the note that we know is G from space, the star of G, but it's on within 4 o'clock, the collection of notes around C, right? And so then I'm going to say, okay, what if I want to keep my finger on that, so it's still on the star of G from space, but I want the world to spin to give me that node right there, which is the Phrygian, which is leaning forward into shape number 5, which is the Mixolydian shape or the Ionian A shape. Well, then I just move this forward from 4 o'clock up 1, 2, 3 ticks to 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock is D sharp. Collection notes about D sharp major. So I move that up, boom. Now from the perspective of the yellow, it's still 5 frets up, 3rd string down. My finger has not moved off of the star of G, but now it's leaning forward within this shape into shape number 5. So that's it. So anytime the 3rd string down from the ceiling is the Phrygian, I can think of it as though I'm leaning forward into shape number 5, right? And so if I go back this way and say, okay, well, what if I don't know that shape, but I know the 3 up here in shape number 1 or over here, but I'm going to use this one this time. So if that's the case, I can say, oh, I can play this as though it's the top string of shape number 1 if, as long as I move down and then I cross this point, I account for the kink in the tuning, which on the guitar would be a shift to the right. The reason you have to shift to the right with your hand is because the shape of the fretboard is, in essence, distorted to the left because you can imagine the fretboard is like distorted in water, and it's kind of tilted that way because of the water illusion distort. You know what I mean? So if I move this down, so that means this is going to go down 1, 2. If I move down 2 ticks, each tick down is equivalent to 5 ticks to the right, which will be 10 ticks to the right. And then I'm going to go another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ticks to the right. That's 15 ticks to the right. 15 is greater than 12, so I could bring it down because the world only spins every 12 hours because not 24, our world goes around 12 hours. So it'd be 15 minus 12, which is 5 minus 2, which is 3. And if I'm in constellation, if I'm in 4 o'clock, then 4 plus 3 would be 7. 4 plus 4, 5, yeah. So boom. So I move it down here to do it. There it is. So now from the perspective of the yellow, we end up in the same place, meaning my finger is still hovering over the star of G, but I'm leaning forward into shape number 5 again. But the red is telling us, look, I can kind of visualize that as though it was the top shape, the top string of shape number 4, right? And you get to the same kind of visualization. All right, let's look at it this way with this. Now I'm going to map out the entire constellation because I'm being guitar-centric. Let's imagine we're not going to be guitar-centric, and we're going to make this argument. We're going to hear someone say, yes, I can see what you're saying with your modal-centered theory, but that is purely a guitar-centric, and you should not impose your guitar-centric viewpoint on the rest of us just because the piano has been doing that forever. And it's like, I'm not doing that, okay? Because, like, you could say, no, that's not what's happening, because you could put the full constellation of the stars on top of the planet that we've unfolded down below, and it has nothing to do with the guitar, you know? It's just basically mapping out the x-axis is the notes, and the y-axis is steps and shorts and fifths and fourths, which is totally natural thing to do, totally common. I would think this grid would be in music books. I'm not sure if it is because I'm an accountant, but I haven't seen it. And I feel like it should be because it seems like an obvious thing to do. If it's not, either I'm stupid or someone is like dropping the ball, okay? And then the constellation is the only guitar-centered point. You could put a piano on it. You could put a violin on it. You could put a bass on it. I don't care. But this concept is not guitar-centric, I don't think. Anyway. No, I know it's not. Don't tell me. I know what I'm talking about. You can't give them an inch, or else they see that and then they beat you over the head with it. They take that inch that you gave them, they make a stick out of it, and they whack you with it. Don't give them an inch, man. Okay. so we've got here. So now we can see that the open E is nodal point 3, or the Phrygian. Open A is nodal point 6, or Aeolian. Open D is nodal point 2, or Dorian. Open G is nodal point 5, or Mixolydian. Open B is 7, or Locrian. Open E is 3, or Phrygian. So once again, we're on the 5th fret up, 3rd string down, which we can now see from space. We're on the star of G. On the star of G. And we want to then shift it to have the world spin under my finger so that now from space we have the Phrygian under it. So that means here it is. We're going to tick it 1, 2, 3 ticks to the right, which will take us from 4 o'clock plus 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. So we just go boom, boom, boom. Well, it's trippy. It's trippy, but it works. Wow. Now hold on a second. Wait, now I tripped myself out, man. Dang it. Okay. So no, I moved the wrong thing. What am I doing? This thing here. Okay. I see. I remember how my worksheet works. There it goes. Okay. Okay. So now from the yellow's perspective, it's still the 5th fret up, 3rd string down from the ceiling. I'm still have my finger on the star of G. It hasn't moved, but the planet under it has moved. So now it's on the continent of Phrygian, and I'm leaning forward into shape number 5. And now you can see that the 1, which is Ionian, is on D sharp because we're at 7 o'clock. And if I number A as 1, that counts up to D sharp being number 7. Okay, let's move it back. What if I did it from here? I want to move this. I know this shape. So I have my finger on the star of G, but can I play it as though it's like the top string of shape number 4? Because that's where I know the Phrygian shape from on the top string. We could, as long as we account for the kink in the tuning. When we get down to here, why does that work? Because that would be like as though I moved the shape 2 ticks down, which is equivalent to 10 ticks to the right, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ticks to the right. That's 15 tick to the right equivalent. 15 is over 12. 5 minus 12, or 15 minus 12 is 5 minus 2, which is 3, plus 4 o'clock. I'm at 4 plus 3 is 7. So that once again gets us to 7. 7 is equivalent to D sharp. So boom, down here, and then up here. And so now we can see that, and we can see once again, I have not moved my finger from the star of G. We're still leaning forward now into shape number 5. We can see that we have a 1 next to D sharp because D sharp is now the perspective of the Ionian or major, meaning we're at 7 o'clock, all right, in the rotation. Okay. All right. Let's go back. And that makes perfect sense, I feel like. I mean, how can you argue with that? That's like, it's too hard. What do you mean? It's way easier than memorizing 7 times. It's 7 times 12 different scales, and then every time you change a scale, you're going to memorize it as though it's in like its own like little box in your mind, and then like that's way harder than this. I feel, I don't know. I don't understand, but that's what I'm going to do. I feel like